Hassan Whiteside, born June 13, 1989. Hassan Whiteside is one of those players where the numbers never told the whole story. On any given night, he looked unstoppable, blocking shots, controlling the glass, stuffing the stat sheet. During his Miami run, it really felt like the league might have found another dominant big man, but over time, that excitement faded. Teams stopped reacting to the box score and started watching how the game actually flowed with him on the floor. And as the league sped up and got smarter, Whiteside stayed the exact same. The gap between what he produced and what winning demanded is where his career quietly changed direction. Salute to Florida's _finest 05 on IG for this request. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Take a minute to like, subscribe, and comment on who I should do next. Hassan Whiteside is a 7-foot center from North Carolina who took one of the most unusual paths to relevance in NBA history. After a short, underwhelming stint with the Sacramento Kings to start his career, he quickly fell out the league. For years, Whiteside bounced around overseas and in the G League, putting up big numbers but struggling to stick at the NBA level. To most people, his story already felt finished. That changed in 2014 when the Miami Heat gave him another chance. Under Eric Spoelstra, Whiteside exploded onto the scene as a rim protector, leading the league in blocks and becoming one of the most talked about breakout players in basketball. His stat lines were eye-catching and his production earned him major minutes, national attention, and eventually a massive contract in 2016. At his peak in Miami, Whiteside was posting double-doubles nightly and anchoring the paint. But even during those strong seasons, questions followed him about effort, feel for the game, and how much his impact actually translated to winning. As the league continued to evolve, those questions would only get louder, setting the stage for what came next. Stunt number 1, chasing numbers instead of impact. At his peak, Hassan Whiteside became the perfect example of how production can look dominant without always translating to winning. The box scores were loud, blocks, rebounds, double-doubles stacked night after night. For a stretch in Miami, those numbers made him feel unavoidable. But when teams started to watch closer, the same issues kept popping up. Defensive gambles, chasing blocks instead of positioning, and leaving shooters open just to pad a stat. On paper, he looked like one of the best bigs in the league. On tape, the story was more complicated. Whiteside's defensive instincts were often reactive. Instead of anchoring the defense, he hunted highlights. Shot blocking became the priority, not deterring shots or directing traffic. His offense told a similar story. Post-ups slowed the flow, screens were hit or miss, and ball movement often stopped when the ball found him. None of this meant he couldn't help a team. It meant his help came with conditions. And in today's NBA, coaches don't like conditions. As the league kept shifting towards spacing, mobility, and decision-making, the gap became obvious. Centers weren't just supposed to protect the rim anymore. They had to communicate, switch, pass, and make the game easier for everyone else. Whiteside never fully bought into that evolution. His value stayed tied to individual production instead of collective rhythm. The bigger issue is that once a player gets labeled as someone who chases stats, trust starts to fade. Coaches shorten leashes, teammates hesitate, playoff minutes disappear, and that's exactly what happened. When the game tightened and possessions mattered more, Whiteside became harder to play, not because he lacked size or skill, but because teams couldn't rely on his decisions. Numbers kept him in rotations longer than his impact may have suggested, but eventually the league caught on. What once looked dominant settled into something teams were willing to replace, and that's where his career stalled. Not at the height of his production, but at the moment the NBA decided that production alone wasn't enough. Stunt number 2, the league learned his habits. Once Hassan Whiteside's game was fully exposed, the league adjusted, and he never really adjusted back. Early on, teams were caught off guard by his size and shot blocking. Guards drove recklessly, players challenged him at the rim. Those block numbers came quickly, but the more film circulated, the more predictable his tendencies became. Opponents learned when to pull him away from the paint, when to bait him into jumping, and when to attack the space he left behind. Pick and rolls became a problem, and guards forced him into decisions he wasn't comfortable making. Stay back and give up floaters, or step up and surrender lobs and kickouts. When teams went small, his limitations were magnified even more. He struggled containing quicker players and defending in space, which made him matchup dependent in a league that was quickly moving toward versatility. On offense, the same issue showed up. Whiteside never developed a reliable counter beyond finishing at the rim. There was no consistent short roll passing or no expanded skill set that punished defenses for collapsing. Once opponents figured out how to keep him off the block and make him uncomfortable catching the ball, his efficiency dipped, and so did his presence. What really hurt him was that this wasn't a sudden drop. It was a slow realization spreading across the league. Coaches trust players they can predict. Whiteside became predictable in the wrong ways. Teams knew what he wanted to do, how he liked to play, and where he was hesitant. This predictability made him easier to scheme out of games, especially against disciplined opponents. This is where the league left him behind, not overnight or not out of malice, but out of necessity. Basketball kept evolving toward players who could read the game on the fly and adapt from possession to possession. Whiteside stayed largely the same. When teams adjusted, he relied on the same tools instead of adding new ones. Once that happened, his role started shrinking. Fewer touches, shorter stints, less patience, because once a player's habits are fully mapped, the margin for error disappears. And for Whiteside, that margin vanished faster than he realized. Stunt number 3, the contract changed the urgency. The last piece of Hassan Whiteside's story, and the one that really sealed how teams view him, was how his urgency dropped once the contract arrived. During his breakout stretch in Miami, everything felt sharp. He ran harder, hunted rebounds, and protected the paint like his career depended on it, because it did. That window mattered. The league had already moved on from him once, and for a moment it looked like he understood that this was his last real shot to establish himself. Then the payday came. Once Whiteside secured his major contract, the edge faded. Not immediately and not all at once, but enough that teams noticed. The game-to-game effort stopped feeling consistent. Some nights he looked engaged, other nights he blended into the floor. The hunger that powered his rise didn't show up the same way, and instead of expanding his skill set, he leaned into what already worked. There was no clear push to improve as a passer, no real willingness to adapt defensively, and no visible commitment to becoming easier to play alongside. That matters more than people realize. NBA careers aren't just about what you can do, they're about what teams trust you to do every night. Once coaches sensed that Whiteside's efforts wavered based on situation and stakes, patience disappeared. Mistakes that were once tolerated became unacceptable. Rotations tightened, his margin for error vanished, and the timing couldn't have been worse. At the same moment Whiteside plateaued, the league was accelerating. Centers were learning to switch, pass, stretch the floor, and make quick decisions. Whiteside stayed tied to production-based value, blocks, boards, rim finishes, while the league began prioritizing versatility and engagement. Improvement wasn't optional anymore, and it didn't come. That's when teams stopped waiting. He kept getting chances, but the roles shrank. Shorter stints, less trust late in games, and fewer opportunities to anchor anything long-term. Not because he couldn't play, but because the league no longer believed he was building towards something better. Once that belief disappears, so does the future. All in all, Hassan Whiteside's career shows how far talent alone can take you and where it stops. He earned his way back into the league, turned a second chance into a massive contract, and had moments where he genuinely impacted games. That part of his story matters, but once the urgency faded, so did the patience teams had with him. The league didn't question his size or ability, it questioned his commitment to improving. As the NBA kept evolving, Whiteside stayed connected to what got him paid instead of what would keep him trusted. Coaches wanted reliability, teammates needed consistency. What they got was effort that came and went. Over time, roles shrank and opportunities shortened, not because he couldn't play, but because teams stopped seeing progress. Whiteside didn't flame out, he leveled off, and in a league that never stops moving, leveling off is enough to get you past by. Salute, much respect, it's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.